Paperback Rocker, episode 72. Hey, this is Matt Severson, the Paperback Rocker, and I'm broadcasting from my 6x9 foot cinder block shack in the desert of northern Mexico, southern Texas. Welcome and thanks for checking out my show.
Fueled by espresso and popsicles, it's the Paperback Rocker.
Hey everybody, what's up? It's your old comrade, Matt, aka the Paperback Rocker. I'm back with yet another episode, they come frequently nowadays, of the Paperback Rocker podcast. Thanks for being with me again. In case you've never been here, I am a writer, I'm a musician, I write books about music, and I make music about books. That's a pretty good gimmick. And I'm currently reading this book called Blue Whiskey, which is, I think, my fourth published novel. And it's a story of a folk musician who goes to Greenwich Village. And that's about all I guess I need to give as an introduction to something that we are on the episode, or I think volume 14, maybe 15. I can't remember. But all I know, it's too hot and I can't think straight. The locusts have begun their braying outside. If you open my door, any, like say evening, dark, you can hear frogs, coyotes, packs of coyotes howling, running all over the place. Donkeys braying in the darkness, which is terrifying to hear. Because it does not sound like what you think it sounds like when you're watching them in a movie or something. It is a horrific, murderous screech, deep bellowing. It's amazing how loud it is in the darkness. Same for coyotes too. It's deceptively loud. You think that they're right next to you, but they're really can be a long way off. And you might also hear some Tejano music, and there's more things. I know dogs for sure. Lots of dogs. That's probably about it. But there's also snakes and things like that. Cockroaches all over the place. But anyway, it's very, very hot outside. It is officially popsicle season. If you remember, I eat a lot of popsicles in my 6x9 foot cinder block shack in the desert to keep me cool. And also just because I enjoy them. And I've got my first drop shipment of the season coming in later tonight. Last year, there were like a baker's dozen Schwan's-men who formed a bucket brigade and got the popsicles in without letting them melt into my deep freeze. And then afterwards, we all had fudgesicles. And I still keep in touch with them. Hopefully, it'll be the same crew. I hope I have placed the order for the correct amount of fudgesicles. I don't know. Hopefully they'll be satisfied with some those red, white, and blue rocket popsicles. And that's also coincidentally why I'm doing shorter shows now, is because about 15 to 20 minutes is as long as I can go without eating a popsicle. So anyway, that's the current state here at the Paperback Rocker podcast. When last we read in this book, Blue Whiskey, Reuben and Stanton had been sitting at the bar talking things over. Stanton was revealing his plan to move in about 3 months, and Reuben was playing these songs in succession, said it was his perfect song list. Okay? And then after discussing that for a second, they went off to bed. They had listened to 38 songs. So that's where we pick up on page 97. Years later, a young filmmaker came into the Thirsty Possum just before closing time. He said he was scouting locations for a movie, so Reuben let him hang out after the doors were locked. kicking this base. Sorry. So Reuben let him hang out after the doors were locked. By this time, Reuben had posted a laminated copy of his immaculate playlist above the jukebox. Reuben poured 2 pints and went to the Wurlitzer and fed it an overdose of dimes and pushed button after button, just like when he introduced me to the list. By this time, Reuben had the sequence memorized and could punch them incredibly fast, and the movie director turned to watch the action. Long story short, Reuben's playlist became the soundtrack for American Graffiti. The filmmaker added just 3 songs of his own, which were tunes that came out after Reuben made the list. As thanks, Reuben appeared in the movie, credited as Bearded Man Behind Counter. 2 days after our late-night discussion, I was ready to leave Reuben and the Thirsty Possum for New York. I meant to go first thing in the morning, but didn't get away until after lunch. The Thirsty Possum had hosted a blowout of epic scale the night before as a send-off to yours truly. No doubt the other attendees were still asleep. It was just me and Reuben. We stood on each side of my Chevy's hood, feeling awkward. I had loaded the vehicle the day before. "I guess this is it," I said. "Thanks for everything." "You'll keep in touch." It was Reuben's final order as my boss. "I'll write when I can." "Screw that. Call me collect, especially if you're in trouble." "That's not exactly a ringing endorsement, Rube." "You'll be fine, but call me if you get in trouble. When you get in trouble. Call me if and when you get in trouble." As I said, this was awkward. We met in front of the car and hugged. I got in and started Wanderlust and pulled away, waving goodbye to Reuben. I held back my tears for 2 whole blocks. After driving about 6 hours, I made it just past Tuscaloosa, Alabama, to a place called Stringtown, where I stopped for a late dinner. The only open restaurant I could find was a little cinder block building with no sign. I smelled the food as I was driving by and turned around. When I walked in, I noticed that this was unlike any restaurant I'd eaten at. Judging by the patrons and the employees, the place was a restaurant for black people. I don't have a prejudiced bone in my body, and after all, I had to eat, so I sat down in the nearest chair. A young guy about my age was wiping the nearest table. He finished and sized me up and said, "White boy gonna try some soul food." I'd never heard the term soul food, and never been called white boy. Both of them made me smile. "My name's Otis," he said. He was the first person I'd ever seen with a gold front tooth. He caught me staring at it and said, "Don't be shy. You ain't the first to admire it, and you sure ain't gonna be the last." He smiled broadly so I could get a clearer view. I smiled back and said, "My name's Stanton. Are you still open?" "Course we is. We stays open late. People tend to get a hankering for Mama's cooking after they's drank a bit in the evening." "I see," I said. "I'll have whatever you recommend." "Mama done made up your mind." He laughed, and I felt warm in his presence. "We ain't got no menu. Mama cooks what Mama wants. You gonna have fried gizzards, twice-cooked poke salad with vinegar, chitlins with hot sauce, and fried okra. How's that sound?" I've never had any of it, but I'm hungry. What about dessert?" "Mama makes the best sweet tater pie you done gonna have." I smiled, and Otis rushed away to assemble my meal. He moved lightning fast, even though the place was mostly empty. I looked around at the abused tables and the black spots where the tile had worn through from sliding chair legs, and I knew this place was usually busy. In no time, Otis set the plate down in front of me. He said, "Let me get you some sweet tea," and was gone again. He brought it to me and went back to wiping tables, but I caught him watching me, trying to detect my reaction to the food. Every couple minutes, someone would come out from the kitchen and sit at a picnic table behind me. Finally, I turned around and saw 6 black kids of varying age staring at me. I smiled at them and said, "This soul food is wonderful." They erupted in whoops and laughter, and I mean they erupted. One thing I've noticed over the years is that black people are much more dynamic than white people. "You the first white boy to set foot in here," said Otis, smiling. "I'm glad I did," I said. "I'm ready for that pie and a little more sweet tea, please." You got it, Mr. Stanton. Otis waved his arm at his brothers and sisters and said, "Get back in the kitchen, y'all. Ain't y'all never seen a white boy enjoying some soul food? Get to stepping." A stampede of feet rushed to the kitchen, and Otis winked at me before he walked away. When I had finished my meal and paid, I asked Otis if he knew of a good place to park my panel van for the night, and he gave me verbal directions to a park. I thanked him and walked out to my car, happy and satisfied. It was dark now, and a sudden thought came to me. Be careful. As I neared Wonderlust, shapes appeared from behind it. 3 black boys in their teens strolled up to me in the diminished light. "What you doing around here, honky?" said the biggest one, who was in front of me. The other 2 took positions at my sides. "I don't want any trouble, fellows. Just passing through, and I stopped for a bite to eat. I don't want any trouble." "Well, maybe we want trouble," said the one on my left. "You must have got money if you're traveling." "Yeah," the one in front of me said. "Fork over the cash, honky, and we'll let you go." "We'll let you go, honky," echoed the smallest one to my right in a rat-like voice. An ominous mechanical sound broke the silence a few yards away in the darkness. It was instantly identifiable as the cocking of a handgun. I had heard it in John Wayne movies. "You punks leave that boy alone," said Otis. "We done told y'all you ain't welcome around here. Now get." The hoodlums bolted, and Otis fired a shot in the air for good measure. "Sorry, mister," he said as he approached me. I had a hunch them knuckleheads be around tonight. I saw 6 crowded faces peering out through the little cafe's glass door. "You think I'll be safe sleeping in the park, Otis?" I was a bit shaken by the experience. Otis was cool as ever. But he had a gun and I didn't. Sorry, I had an itch. Well, he had a gun and I didn't. "Well, them knuckleheads is usually pretty easy to scare off. It helps if you got a shooter," he said, lifting the gun from his side. It looked huge next to Otis's skinny arm. "I don't." "You sleeping in a tent or the vehicle?" "In my van, with the doors locked." "Has she ever slept 2? He asked. "Most always," I said, thinking of the son of Faulkner. "Where you headed?" he asked. "New York City." "You don't say. Following your dreams, I bet. Care to tell me about it?" "Sure. Let's get a 6-pack and sit on a picnic table in the park and tip a wrist. I know a good table right by the river. I'll tell you about what I'm dreaming of and saving up for. I ain't never told nobody." Otis turned to the cafe and yelled, "See y'all tomorrow." The 12 eyes peering through the door became impossibly large as they understood that Otis was going to hang out with me for the night. We hopped in my Chevy and Otis said, "Boy, your ride be nice. I could make a lot of dough hauling stuff for people with a ride like this." He slid the gun under the seat. I tried to hide it, but Otis caught the look of concern that flashed across my face. "Don't worry, Mr. Stanton. I ain't going to rob you." "Oh, I didn't. It's all right. Them boys done scared you." "I'm sorry, Otis." "There's no reason for you to apologize. I knew the minute I laid eyes on you there ain't a prejudiced bone in you." Wait, Lucy. "So you'd like a vehicle like this to haul stuff for people?" I asked, hoping to move the conversation in a different direction. "It's not that I really want to haul people's stuff around. I want to haul Dim around. I'm saving for a taxi car. I'm going to be a cab driver." "That's a wonderful idea," I said. "You'll surely be the only one in town." "Yes, sir. And ain't hardly nobody got their own car on the south side of Stringtown. I'm going to be busy." Busy took about 5 seconds to unfurl with the proper emphasis. Otis was being dynamic. My new friend directed me to a little liquor store, and I went in and purchased a 6-pack. I was not asked for identification. Remember that I looked older, but I don't think it would have mattered. "This beer is warm," I said as I climbed into Wonderlust. "They don't sell it cold round here," Otis said. "The local officials do all they can to discourage drinking, so they sell it hot. You get used to it." "Well, if it's okay with you, it's okay with me." We drove deep into the giant park, which was in a natural low spot by a good-sized river. Otis guided me to the picnic table he had spoken of, and we got out and sat on it and popped a top. Bet this park floods, I said. You wouldn't believe. It can rain up north and it be dry as a bone down here, and that water will come running down and flood like a flash. That's why this park be so clean. I gave him a worried glance, but it was so dark I thought there was no way he saw it. Don't get yourself all worried, Mr. Stanton. We be fine tonight. Otis laughed, and it comforted me. I'm going to call it right there, I guess. Sorry for the abrupt ending, but there's a couple more pages in this chapter. We are on page 102, and I have a Scottish Terrier keeps clawing my leg that she wants to go out, so I better do that. Hope you're enjoying the book. Drop me a line sometime at paperbackrocker@live.com and say hi. So have a good half a week until the next episode comes at you. See ya.
The Paperback Rocker has signed off.